morning. I believe this is a wonderful way that by which HFM is trying to organize small Indian businesses and strategies to rise up during this difficult period that we have. COVID-19 period has been really a tough time, not only for us in India, but also globally. And SOCHM, which is Association of the Chambers, which is celebrating 100 years. And perhaps, in this last 100 years, SOCHM must have seen a lot of such pandemics across, and they've made multiple reports which are useful for businesses. So I think we have in the panel Colonel Sanjeev Datta. Sanjeev ji, I think you can wave your hand so that people can see you.
Good
He's
morning, all.
So he is a specialist in HR as well as businesses, and he has been with the Indian Armed Force, having his duty for many years. And then we have Saurabh from the business background, and he represents Indian operations of Business Doctor from UK. And we have Dr. Aman, who's from the finance sector. Amanji, you can say hello as well.
Yeah, namaskar.
Okay, I think what we would start with is, this particular time, which is a difficult time, and finance being right in the center of the whole business arena. I would want Dr. Aman to start, although he has some technical problems in the viewing him, but we should at least hear him through as to what he has, is the situation and how finances would be affected in all these small businesses that we have. Amanji.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. I think it's amazing times we are going through. They are difficult, they are challenging, there are large number of opportunities we come across. The today's news which has come out of IMF is a relief to some extent, although they say that our GDP is expected to go down to 1.9%. But with 1.9% for 2020, that is January to December 2020, we are still the fastest growing economy in the world, whereas the rest of the world is growing at minus 5.9%, minus 7%, and so on and so forth. So there is some respite to the fact that we are still going to grow to some extent. The other fact which has come forth is, as you might have seen, the strong step taken by Mr. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, has put some of us in difficulty. But I think this is not something which is critically a difficult component, because as Nirmala Sitharaman said in her budget speech also, India's entrepreneurs, which comprises a large number of MSMEs, small, medium, large, even large organizations, as a matter of fact, has survived tests of times over almost, I would say, over, she said 3,000 years, I would say over 10,000 years. The business has been going on with different pandemics of different natures, wars, and so on and so forth, with dominations of different regions coming forth. Even despite that, we are seeing actually a lot of growth which has come into the country because of the perseverance, the jugaad attitude, or the structure of wanting to succeed going forward. And I think that is something which needs to be given credit to the MSME segment, the small entrepreneur segment in this country, which has never gone out of business given whatever circumstances may be there. So finances is something which has never been a problem in the past. I think they will not be a problem today, whereas the world is going towards closure. In January, when the first news came out in December, beginning of January, in some of our interviews on television, very clearly remarked that this is an opportunity before us as against a challenge, because now the MSME sector, which has actually been stifled and contained because of the excessive import from China and some of the other Southeast Asian economies into India, has actually been throttled. And a large number of these MSMEs, which are producing manufacturers, have actually gone out of business, and they've started going only into trading now or importing goods. Now this is a chance again now for to surface back again, given the closeness which most economies around the world is going to address and observe, and the fact that we are the nearest to what China has been producing and providing to the world at large. We have seen the move by Japan, we have seen the move by US companies where they wanting to move out. What's the next best option is what India is, with strong regulatory frameworks, with legal frameworks, with democracy in place. And so I have a lot of hope coming forth. And just one line before I close for the comment. If we really look at last 150 years, and if we see situations of difficulties like wars or pandemics of the stage of 1913, 1918 and all, or tsunamis which took place in the mid of 2000, if we really see, the world actually came out with a much stronger growth structures because there was need and requirements to do so. So I think it's a question of analyzing the opportunities, challenges we have always been facing every day, day in, day out. Every entrepreneur, whether he's a shopkeeper or he's a kirana shop or a person sitting on the tela, all of them actually observe difficulties on a day-to-day basis in this country even today. So I don't think challenge is a problem. It's only a question of looking at the opportunities and cashing them for our benefits.
I think, Amanji, you very rightly said that it is the opportunities how we can, really create out of these challenges which are currently there. And as you rightly mentioned, that whenever we see these innovations or opportunities coming out, it's generally at the time when there has been some downfall in the economy or some downfall globally, either in terms of world war or pandemic or whatever, and that's where these opportunities have really come up. Be it in new innovations in whatever sector that we talk about, you are very right that this is where. But still, there is something which I would like to ask you, since you're a man with finance background, that how do you see startups, which is one of the sectors which I represent, the startup sector in the SOCHM. We have a lot of funding which comes globally from different areas. Especially, we've seen the Indian big startups, the large ones, which have been funded primarily from the Chinese subcontinent or even from the US side. Do you see a change in the finances on the startup?
Yes, you see, please understand one small thing, that the definition of startups have come up now, but are they something new? We have seen startups going for almost 200, 300 years in this country. We did some research study, and if you look at Lijjat Papad and various others, they were all startups which were initiated at different phases of time with different kind of structures, different kind of frameworks altogether. And fortunately for today, earlier the startups had to totally depend on funds from their family, like Chris Gopalakrishnan and others who started Infosys had to, pledge the gold of their wives to go forward. But today, startups have an opportunity. Not only governments are providing them fund, but there are startup exchanges, like when in Singapore, like the FinTech startup exchange, where they actually go about funding startups. I am ambassador to one of the German startup organizations, which is funded by the government of Germany, and one more called GINSEP. So there are a large number of initiatives now, which are both in the public domain, in private domain. Now the HNI funding, the PE funding, large number of these are going to the startup. So the dearth of funds is not there. It's actually finding the right kind of an opportunity, and not people who want to actually just enjoy money and disappear, ending up creating NPAs and problems. So if you have a real work, if you're able to show the potential, if you're wanting to work hard, I think if life could be discovered by thousands of failures, and if you could see, presidents like Abraham Lincoln failing year after year, and for almost about 18, 20 years, becoming the president finally. So why don't we see things happen otherwise? So I think we can certainly be hopeful of what will be there, and the startups can get the financing. There is no dearth of financing, whether it is from government sources. Fortunately, for the medical and hospital-based services, this government initially, within the first month when the lockdown was announced, the SIDBI and others have come forth and said, if you want to get into this venture, do some activities, whether it's a question of making masks, or it's a question of making sanitizers, or it's a question of making other medical things. Now even the government is coming with, they are willing to finance that at a very low, almost like 4.5%, 5% kind of a rate for going or about starting, even give them more levy. I think the government and other institutions are trying to provide the best. It's now for the startup industry to encash this opportunity to take India forward into the next industry. And I think 1.9% GDP growth is a good motivator, a news which has come out from the IMF, whereas various agencies have said anywhere between 1.6 to 4%. The IMF considering it 1.9%. I think it's very good to initiate that positive movement in one's life.
I think, Amanji, you rightly said that 1.9% of the growth is a phenomenal growth as compared to most other countries. And when we have this resilience built in the Indian subcontinent, everyone has got that strategies of making their own jugaad, the way that they can really come ahead. So I would now switch over to Saurabhji, taking what steps one should take post COVID-19, how the MSME or the small businesses, should really look forward in terms of protecting the business interests. Saurabh.
Thank you, Bharat Bhai. Thank you, Bhai. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. So post-COVID, we all are a little skeptical that how the businesses are going to function, and whether what steps we have to take to ensure that we don't fall into the hands of black sheep and people take disadvantage of the situation. And especially now with 1 month or 2 months of actual business is gone, and the impact would go on for a few more months, there would always be a challenge to meet the target for the year. And we all have the fixed expenses and everything, so we need to have the good sales, the top line to make up for the loss. And in this process, we may end up not doing good, but maybe end up doing bad for our businesses in terms of not doing the precautions or the right selection of the people. And our working capital, which is already in stress, may further get deteriorated. So I've come out with certain business best practices which can be adopted by the businesses. Since the time is short, I will quickly run through them. So what are these things that you can adopt in your business which can help you to remain protected and maximize your capital to earn maximum out of it? So few of the businesses best practices that you need to implement is always have a KYC of a customer. So KYC of a customer would include everything relating to a customer. More often than not, it happens that if the default happens and we don't have any information about the customer, so have a full KYC of the customer. Have a personal reference of client before supplying on credit. If a new person is approaching you, identify whether that person has a past record in the market, what it is. Defined credit limit of all clients. Don't give credit to somebody just for the sake of doing it. Have a reference, have a limit to him, how much you can extend to him, so that you don't get into a trap where your maximum money is gone into one person and you are left with nothing. Don't do any cash transaction. Cash transaction, big no, because cash transaction don't have a trail and you cannot do anything with the person. Whenever you get a purchase order or a check, always verify. Always verify. There are lots of times it happens that we overlook certain aspects of the purchase order, some retention clause, some damage clause, and the checks. Sometimes the checks are outdated. Sometimes there is a miswriting in the check. So those things hurt you when it comes to final realization of the amount. I've seen a case where a BG was the wrong BG, and ultimately the person could not take any money out of it. Ensuring that the client don't become insolvent, although there is going to be a break on the insolvency proceedings, but ensure that if there is a person who is already into the last leg of his business and he becomes insolvent, then you only get a proportion of the money, and even in certain cases nothing. In Alok industry, creditors more than 3 lakh rupees only got 0 rupees. 0 rupees. Send debit note of interest. This is something which cannot be practiced now, but so I will not take that. Always put all correspondence with the defaulting party on record. Start the process of documenting the things. Just on the verbal orders, on the WhatsApp order, don't do anything. Get it on email, get everything framed, so that in the case of dispute, you can clarify it. Then your invoice should have terms and conditions, including interest clause and due date. Interest, your objective is not to earn interest, but this is there to put a pressure on the party to make your payments in time. Have a due date, because without due date cannot be done. Acknowledgement of material delivery. As far as possible, try to get an acknowledgement of material delivery. There is some disturbance of somebody, I don't know. Periodic confirmation of accounts. As far as possible, try to get your confirmation of accounts every 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Regular credit check and due diligence of parties. Regular credit check and due diligence.
All organizers and the panelists request you to kindly mute yourself. Let Saurabh sir only speak. There's an echo in the voice.
Yes, Saurabh, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Regular credit check and due diligence of parties. It is very important that we have a credit check and due diligence of parties done. See, what happens is, if you have a credit check, somebody who was paying you for last 15 days in time, his business may have suffered a lot in this period, or he was working with a company whose business has suffered a lot. So he may not be in a position where he can pay you, or he can even have become insolvent. So ensure that you have a system of credit check of the parties and due diligence you have done before you work with the company. Purchase order, work order, if you don't give, there is a lot of these. So I think purchase order, if party don't give, then always forward your confirmation of acceptance of order, underlying details.
Saurabh sir,
Sign and
my
stamp on
request, if you can, Saurabh sir, my request, if you can load on your speaker's volume also, so that might impact.
Okay, I also do my, okay,
Load on your speaker volume for a while, till the time you're speaking.
okay. Hello, is it better now?
Please go ahead.
Hello. Yeah. So regular credit check and due diligence of parties. It is very much important that we do the credit check and due diligence of parties, because it may happen that those parties may not be existing and they just take your money and finish up their operation. Purchase work order, if party don't give, then always forward your confirmation of acceptance of order, underlying detail. There are many businesses you don't get the purchase orders. So whatever you have got under order, you put it in writing and explain to him, this is on this basis I have taken the order from you, so that he cannot go back and change the conditions suiting to his needs. Sign and stamp on invoices as far as possible. Although with the e-waybill, this condition would not be there, but as far as possible, put the invoice, send it to him, and say that this is what the invoice is there, so that he cannot challenge the terms and condition of the invoices. Try to get payment bill to bill, invoice by invoice, and first in, first out. What happens is that in this condition, when the people would be in stress, they would have a pressure to pay to the bank, and it is quite possible that the businesses have become unviable. In the circumstances, there are two kind of people: one who have circumstantially become like that, and certain people who are habitual like that. So they try to create an issue for not paying the money to you. So for avoiding that, try to get your bills cleared one by one, so that there is no on account transaction. Everything is settled, so that he can only raise an issue with the respect to the last transaction. Take credit insurance. Now there are a lot of credit insurance companies available for large companies. When you're working with them, take credit insurance from them. Always have reminders on email or in writing of follow-up. No WhatsApp follow-up. Always have it on reminders on email and in writing. Ensure that the matter does not cross time barred limit. This is a very, very significant term which all businesses must understand. If your last transaction with the party, or your last confirmation of account, or your last acknowledgement of your payment has crossed 3 years, then you have no legal right to recover that money. So ensure that you have to go back and check if there are party who was paying you or who was not paying you. See that if you have last transaction with them was anything before June 2017, then you have to immediately take action, because May is the last month where you can take the action in that, and before that you cannot do anything for those transactions. If you have taken a PDC and check, ensure that it is presented and the case is filed. Please note that 3 months of check date, there is ये कोविड के टाइम पे भी इस पे कोई रिस्ट्रिक्शन नहीं है. Your banks are working. If your check exceeds 3 months date, it would become stale. इसकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं रह जाएगी. You have to ensure that your check is deposited within 3 months. और 3 months होने के बाद अगर वो चेक रिटर्न, मतलब अगर चेक डालने के बाद रिटर्न आता है, तो ensure your send a notice within 30 days. पार्टी नाराज हो उसको बोलना भाई पैसा दे दे, मैं रिटर्न नोटिस वापस ले लूंगा. I am doing procedural thing only. So there is nothing to be wrong about it, because check bouncing में stringent date का restriction होता है. Any settlement or dispute must be settled by way of clear-cut MOU and in writing. जवानी जबा खर्च नहीं करने का, which means that अगर कोई हमारे इशू था, हमने उसको सेटल करा, तो केवल एक पेपर, प्रॉपर पेपर बना करके, जिससे कि आगे उस चीज का रेफरेंस कोई गलत यूज नहीं कर सके. नेवर टेक थर्ड पार्टी पेमेंट. थर्ड पार्टी पेमेंट मतलब मैंने माल दिया ए लिमिटेड में, पेमेंट आया बी लिमिटेड से. नेवर गेट इनटू इट, बिकॉज दिस विल हैम्पर योर, first of all, your time barred thing, and second of all, he can also claim money from you. Yeah.
Saurabhji, I'll just interrupt you here for a minute. Whatever the processes that you asked for, this is what people should generally take care. But when the B2B business happens between small businesses and MSME to another MSME, generally they do not have this kind of processes in place where they have the works order being put, or the acceptance of the works order with all the terms, with all the conditions. People hardly know what are the difference between terms and the conditions as well. They just name it as terms and conditions. So I think there are a lot of issues with the smaller MSME and small businesses. I think that's where they can really look at what you are trying to say, but they should also follow certain practices which should be embedded as a part of the business. Do you have any of those kind of clues which we could give to these small businesses?
Yeah, what I understand from your question is you want to ask that what are the things that they should do in terms of getting these things exercise in their business, right? This is what you are trying to tell me?
Correct. For especially the small businesses, yes.
Yeah. So basically, sir, what I am telling to my audiences here is that, see, what happens is when you are deciding, there are two phases of doing a business. First, when you decide who you want to do business with, and second thing, when you are doing business with them, what kind of precautions or checks you have to keep in place so that there is a pressure on the party to pay you on time. See, what happens is now there is going to be delay in the payments, and this delay in the payments is a big problem for MSME, big problem. So definitely they have tools to recover their money in terms of going to the MSME council and file a MSME Samadhan cases for that. But this is all about postmortem when your money is stuck. But even when you go there, there are certain documentation. If it is not there, then you are at a big risk, because then they will create a issue out of it and you would not be able to get your money. So what you have to keep when you decide a customer, what kind of checks you have to keep, which I am explaining you now. So basically, what kind of checks you have to take when you are dealing with a customer? First, have a KYC of a customer. Now, what you have to include in KYC of a customer, I will forward the list to. I mean, if there is a way we can forward it to everybody. There is a detailed list which you should have for the KYC. See, when you are dealing with a customer, ensure that as far as possible, as far as we are dealing with the private limited, public limited, LLP, we have information in the public domain. So you can get the details of the pending, ongoing, post cases of insolvency, as well as cases of income tax, GST, or whatever is there. So what happens is this would reduce your risk in terms of dealing with the party कि जिसके ऊपर already cases चल रहा है उससे क्यों deal करना? Because you never know वो कब party कहाँ पे खत्म हो जाए. उसकी liabilities, risk exposure is more.
One minute, Saurabh, one second. What you're trying to say is, B2B businesses with larger companies. Now, when a small trader is there or a small businessman is there, he might not have the resources of checking all this information on a Ministry of the sites, and then get all the information which is relevant to his business, whether the defaulter is there or not. So what I suggest is, of course, since there is a limited time frame, what I suggest is that you can make a kind of a short, brief note as to what these checks and analysis that we should put in terms of small businesses. And when we prepare an outcome report of this webinar, I think that the people could download from the ASSOCHAM website.
Sure. So, sir, basically, there are now agencies available in the market who are giving this kind of information. It is like a Janam Kundli of a company, so that you can know that which company you are working with. Like CIBIL is one detriment for. Bharat bhai, I think you have to mute yourself. I think that is the reason. Oh, okay. I think it is like you can see that CIBIL score, how the finance companies take a call from the CIBIL score, knowing what their past history has been. Similarly, there are agencies now available who can give you the report of a client so that you can get a fair assessment of how that client has fared in the past. How you do one thing, you do always everything. So that is available, for which the detailed information I will pass on to Vipul. He can put it on the ASSOCHAM website as far as this is concerned.
Okay, great. So, yeah, I think that's very good. I think that will be very useful for most of the people. So sure. I think that information which you mentioned, that processes and documentation which are very, very necessary for small businesses, as to what, in case if they are not handling it so far, which they really need to look forward. See, going into, we'll come back to you once again, because I have some other questions on my side. Colonel Sanjeev ji is here with us, who has multiple background and also a background of human resources. Sanjeev ji, I would want your perspective on these small businesses, how they would be, because human capital is one of the very, very important capitals in terms of the small businesses, because small and medium-sized businesses also have a lot of employment generation in the country. So, what is your take on this?
Okay, it's been a very, very educative talk by Saurabh and Mr. Aman. However, I feel present COVID-19 has affected people in SMME and MSME sectors where it is involving the human resource in particular is concerned. With the cash flow crunch and the management of the money, the basic thing that is affected people is the salary payment and the payment of other liabilities of the company. And what has happened is that most of the companies have on the first shot, given a cut to the manpower and told them that, okay, you are no more required by the company, and which is adding to the stress of the people who are working with these small companies. And that is a very, very major thing that the COVID-19 has brought in to the small companies. Uh, uh, to my mind, I feel yes, employer and employee both are co-partners in any company's development. And if there is a crisis, I think both the parties should be taken together. Both the parties should understand the problem and go together in the problem. And that is how they can solve the problem. Like instead of throwing, telling people that, okay, or retrenching people that, okay, you are no more required, maybe a short uh, cut in the salary, or you can tell them that we will pay you to a certain extent and maybe the balance we can pay you at a later stage. Or also the HR per se carries a very, very important role in terms of motivating and keeping the manpower resource motivated in these tough times. As it is, COVID-19 is hitting the minds of lots of people, and people are getting agitated, people are getting restless sitting at home, not able to contribute, and are worried as to whether my job will be there or not. If the companies can, motivate these people and be with them, and not tell them that your job is no more, but find a via media where they can continue with this job, I think that will be better understood by all, and we can fight through these difficult times. Like you had earlier said very correctly, that we have fought many other problems that has come our way. It may be in particular to India itself, but this problem is looking very big. But I'm sure over a period of time, we will be able to overcome these issues and the companies will come back. The other thing I would want to add is that as a human resource, it is very important that we keep in touch with our people, because we are unable to meet them on daily basis. The management per se should be in touch through HR or otherwise to their employees and give them that confidence that yes, you don't worry. Find out a via media where they can be useful during these times, and they feel part of the company, and that is how they will be able to benefit the company in the long run. That is what I feel.
I think what you rightly said is there has to be ways and means by which we can be in touch with the employees, and especially the employee engagement programs which can be run through, and especially people are working from home. I am not very sure since there will be different sectorial requirements. Say in the terms of IT, which is my sector, I know that it's easier for people to work from home, but there are many others where perhaps it is difficult to work from home. And as Amanji said, like there are opportunities, which can be created. And let's say the one which we are currently working on a webinar, I think these are the areas and opportunities coming up out of this kind of crisis which we see. Now, tell me one more thing that of course, which is related to HR as well as Amanji. I would want both of you to react on this. Like most countries have also seen that there has been special stimulus packages being announced by the government for the private companies, wherein they do not want the employees to get off the job, and they can be substituted to a certain extent, wherein the government would subsidize and pay that amount, at the moment, and the rest will be done. Amanji, perhaps you can look into this much better.
Yes, I'm happy that you raised this particular point, and not only one but many countries. To name a few, the
Yes.
US began, the UK has begun. Some of the European Union, in fact, is actually doing that kind of activity. They've already released a fund. They were the first ones to do it. And we saw the other day, about 3 days back, Japan coming out and saying that companies should move out and come back, and we'll give about 2.2, 2.3 trillion dollars worth of funding. Not only that, but there are countries which have come out, even in Bangladesh. The other day they said that we will be paying for all workers for a period of 1 month. Now, this is something, when we say we're looking at only developed countries, we can say, oh, they have too much of money and they can do it. I think that's wrong as a perspective to look at. It's not a question of money or not money. It's a question of ideology. How do you want to work forward with? A country like Bangladesh is not very rich, and I think if they can do it, I think any other country and every country around the world can do it. It's a question of objective. It's a question of understanding what is there. Yes, it's important when the government has taken a step of feeding people who are stuck up in different zones in this country, but that's not going to provide sustainability. What's going to provide sustainability is actually the job markets, which are supposed to be maintained, the MSME segment, which is important. I remember reading about 20 years back in a Harvard Business Review, an article which clearly outlined that 82% of businesses worldwide, and specifically as a major study for the US, are actually MSME segment. Even in India, it's not the large corporations, but the MSME which actually penetrates into smallest segments in the country and provides them jobs, buffers, livelihood. And I think they need to be flourished. What I've been suggesting for the last 4 months is that these 3 months should not be only looked at as a moratorium, but actually as slack periods, as zero periods, and actually given that rebate in terms of fixing. Similarly, the NPA definition, which is actually taken by the RBI from the international standards of the BIS and others, should not be taken into account. India has a different scenario altogether, and they need to look at and have a committee which actually creates a new framework for defining NPAs, because as one of us mentioned, there are seasonal factors, there are business factors which actually lead to, not everybody wants to fail. And I remember when I was taking a class at Columbia Business School, and way back 22 years back, at that time, there was a professor where I took a course on mergers and acquisitions and venture capitals. And we had a couple of VC funders who had come and spoken, and they said the only success rate is about 3 to 4%. That means 96% or 97% of ventures they invest in actually fail. But those 3 to 4% are able to suffice them and give them sufficient funding to go forward. So looking at something which is negatively happening is not something with the way business should go. I appreciate Rajneesh's activity in SBI, where he said that we must look at new norms where we can ease the liquidity. The question here is easing liquidity for the MSME and also providing these jobs to these people who have actually been servicing this country for years after years and decades after decades. They need to be respected. They need to be given a self-sustaining situation and not being crippled by giving free foods and fee structure for the rest of their life, because then it will become a way of life and they will expect the government to do that for the rest of their life, which is not feasible for any country. So the way other countries have done, I think the government of India is considering and should consider, and I would like to take this message through the SOCHM, which is a chamber of representatives of the industry largely, is the fact that the government should look at doing some kind of fiscal spending. So far, the fiscal spending which has been done is actually reallocations of whatever they had. They have fairly good amount of buffers. We have foreign exchange reserves of over $500 billion. Total taken together, if you take the loan component of what we have given loan to various countries around India, we are keeping this money for the purpose of security. A country like UK, I remember about 6 years back when I was interviewed on that, on DD, and I remember that time it was a $2.7 trillion economy, UK, but it had only $100 billion as reserves. We have $500 billion. Why are we so much, stingy about the fact that we don't want to ease out this problem and bring in liquidity at the hands of people so that they can be comfort? I think various governments have taken this conscious decision, including the UK, the US, Bangladesh, various other US and all. I think India should also come forward, actually sufficing for the need, because otherwise most of these people will not get money, and if they don't turn back to work tomorrow, they will be the MSME failure, which we're looking as an opportunity, may get into a ditch.
I think you very rightly touched upon, because this is something which is very, very important. And Sanjeev ji would agree to me that the cost of retention and the cost of acquisition of a manpower is much more important. Because otherwise, if we don't be, or if we're not in a position to retain them with whatever support the government should make, I think it's going to be a difficult time that the unemployment would really rise up. What do you say, Sanjeev?
Actually, I fully agree with Mr. Aman. You see, government has to handhold at certain places for these MSME and SME where most of the middle class of the country are working. And that is the lot which has not been taken care of, I feel, at this point of time. Uh, a knee-jerk reaction of feeding people, cooking food is fine. Lots of NGOs are doing it. The government is also helping them out. But this is a one-time kind of activity. But it is not going to be sustaining these people over a period of time. And we need this manpower to work through to produce more. In fact, I would recommend that these companies they start producing more. So the manpower that they have to be more motivated to do that, and one motivation factor is the money in their hands. So if the government can hold these people by supporting them financially, I think that will be the greatest thing that they could do at this point of time.
I think it's you're very rightly said. Money is of course one of the catalysts which is going to really bring up the whole business scenario. But apart from that, there are other policies also which, right, Amanji said, and I think Saurabh would agree on that. There has to be right policies where the MSME will really get boost. Because if you look at the MSME and the SME contribution in the GDP of the nation, I think it's pretty large. So if we cannot ignore it, and on the contrary, like during this tough time, they have innovated their processes and services and even products which they have generated for the support of the nation. I think they have switched over the entire line of businesses just to support such kind of crisis. So I think, Saurabhji, what is your take? This MSME switching over to businesses, which is more relevant in terms of time.
See, what is happening is, as I would like to add on something which Dr. Aman said, that if you see to it in totality, government has given a moratorium. It is not related to the question asked by Bharat, but I want to add on it. The moratorium has been given for 3 months where the interest is deferred. But I want to ask a simple question to the government, that whatever loans are being deferred, they have been deferred at the same interest rate as that was applicable. In case of credit cards, it is 36%. In case of other loans, it is 16, 18, 20, whatever percent. Now, I want to ask one question to the government through this platform, that the home loan price is 9%, 8.5%. This is what we charge for the home loan. Now, premium for the risk you have already taken, why calculating or giving loan at 16%, 18%, 12%? In this period, when it is force majeure, when it is a compulsion on the businesses to defer their installments and the money is in shortage, and especially this money, because it is not waived. So what is happening is you are earning out of it, which means that you should only take interest to the cost, not make major money out of it. So premium for the risk you have already taken, because the tenure you have divided. Now the tenure is extended. So why you want to make money out of it? So technically speaking, no bank is losing money. Only the people, only the businesses are losing money today. So this is a very important point, that you are making benefit out of the cost of somebody, and which is coming out of compulsion. So this is something which should be definitely looked upon.
You're right, but I think perhaps you rightly said, this is not the platform that, we can directly address, but through the SOCHM, I think what even Amanji mentioned and whatever you are saying, I think we should certainly come up with an outcome which we can give it to the government. But certainly
you're not losing anything out of it. Na? It is above your cost. Anyways, you are giving home loan, which is a secured loan on that basis. So why you want to earn from these people's misery today? And this money is going to sustain them to pay off their other creditors. This money would help them to pay off their losses, to make up for the losses, and this would eventually make them remain in the business. Otherwise, they will fall off with such a high rate of interest.
That's true.
Thank you.
So I have one more thought here. When we have this kind of lockdown and situation of such crisis, I have seen a shift, from large format businesses to small format businesses which has come up. For example, a large supermarket, perhaps they may not be as operational as a mom and pop stores, which are operational in UK or even in India, that we see that. what do you see, that would there be a paradigm shift in terms of the business operations per se?
Sir, what I believe is that at the end of the day, everybody has its own niche of customers. So would always be a viability of the big businesses and the small businesses. We are today looking at the doom side, so we would think that we will not buy from Amazon, we will support our local vendor. But 6 months down the line, when the Diwali period come, again the big discounts will come and everybody will again move on to them. So every business has to find his niche. Every business has to find his USP and make himself viable. So you have to make a mix between the two things to keep yourself sustained. So talking about it, big businesses and small businesses both have a role to play, and they have to find their own USP to get it going. And very beautifully, Indian businesses have found this in the past. And just by taking little bit of care, they will move ahead. Second most important point, India is a consuming country. So in the consuming country, we can never have this problem. The problem will be only temporary. We will definitely come out of it and we will again sustain. That's not going to be a problem with India. Thank you.
I think you very rightly said that, a set of customers are varied based on the business models, and each one of them have their own thing. Sanjay ji, I would want to ask you one question here. Like, when people are engaging their human resources, do you foresee that there would be a major change in people laying off, organizations laying off the people, where they feel that the businesses are getting so much hampered, and there would be a recession, saying that there's an unemployment growing out of this kind of situation?
At the face of it, I feel yes, that is the basic feel. The first thing that we tend to do is to lay off people so that our overhead gets reduced and things like that. However, I feel that if the HR has really worked over their manpower requirements properly, and they can optimize their use by maybe increasing their role, increasing their skill, and telling them like during this lockdown period, maybe they can do a little bit of a skilling, which is online and stuff, keep them engaged. And not, I still propagate that we should not get into first action as layoff. We should first try and see as to if we can sustain these people even with less payoff. We should retain them. That will overall as a society, it will have a big impact, though the business owners will find it difficult. And that is where, like Mr. Aman was saying, in case a little bit of a hand holding can be done by the government, I think they will be able to sustain. And we are sure that we will be coming out of this maybe over a period of 6 months. Uh, like so Mr. Saurabh said, that we are a consuming country, and these are the small scale companies are the people who rise to the problem, and we create something which is required by the country, like even now they are doing. So I feel let's not first thing is chop off the people who are working, and we should try and find ways and means to retain them and do more production of whatever is the company that is working at, and increase their money flow, and get the other things on road, and try and get the money back to the rotation. That is what I feel could be done.
Rightly said. In fact, when Amanji started his talk, he mentioned about a lot of countries like Japan is, thinking of shifting quite a lot of their manufacturing base to India. Even there are more than 200 in the US who are also looking at, shifting the base to India. So perhaps, this situation and crisis may generate a better future and better employment sector, and in various areas. Especially when I look at this sectorial change which has happened in the current scenario, and which even KPMG and Deloitte, they would have come up with their own analysis. I feel that logistics is going to become one of the major area of absorption of manpower. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think logistics is going to be going to become double as far as my assessment goes, because as of now there is no movement of goods. There will be production of more products, there will be requirement of moving products out of the warehouses and things like that. So it will be important that we are prepared now, that all the logistics are taken care of. Be it like we just last week we moved trucks on the rail rakes. I think that was a very good idea, where we can expedite movement of goods uh, taking forward, and we meet the requirement that time, because as of now it is just the essential items that we are taking care of. But slowly and subsequently we will be moving on to all the goods and products that are being manufactured and that can be taken off.
All right. Amanji, now I'll come back to you on this, that, since there will be a lot of shift in terms of the business processes. For example, I believe the aviation or the hospitality industry may be a bigger hit as of now for some time. What do you see the finances, inflow of finances going in each of the sectors?
No, I think the hospitality sector in particular has been hit the maximum. But you see, you always take a break. You want to take a break from the stress which is there, rework out, remodel out structures. OYO has been as a group growing up very well. It's a startup group, been funded now. The SoftBank is funding it, Alibaba is funding it, so on and so forth. But as far as I know from the market news, they've been doing fairly bad even before the slowdown, as well as before this COVID thing started. Large number of their properties actually been lying empty for quite some time. Now, given the fact that they have been doing it, now they have a time lag. And I remember all businesses face this, because I remember listening to Bharti Mittal between 2000 2005. In various of his speeches, he said the kind of challenges he started when he started a push button telephone, various other bit, despite being a son of a long-standing member parliament coming from Congress. So whenever the power was there, his business will flourish again, will go down. And even as Airtel, he says, I had to actually taken about 100, 200 people of my people in Goa for about 10 days, lock them up and see. So let us look at this particular lockdown as a reorientation, meditative session for us businesses. Should we continue with the same businesses? Should we move on? Should we diversify? Should we expand it? What should we do? And I think this from the hospitality sector also is critical to be looked upon. Certainly revenue losses have been there, but on one side, if revenue losses in one segment has been there, but there have been revenue gains in other segments as well. So it's not that, and that's why we are seeing this 1.9% growth which is coming forth. So to say that everything is going down, I have been interacting with some of the CEOs from these firms. They have been actually looking at how do they go about servicing, creating facilities to go about catch up. And please understand, behavioral aspects do not change overnight. People have in this country have gotten to a habit which US and Europe used to have for over decades, whereas you're looking at outward movements, you're looking at travel, you're looking at tourism. So you think that this lockdown may create a crash, may create that gap, but would it end? People will go down to their normal. As we always say, it comes down to the normal structure, and as a result, we'll see more participation, more consumption come in by people at large to come forth and do activities. These are moments, these happen, and they are important for us to take steps to be more secure, more seasoned. Look at the way environment has boosted up. We were concerned, large number of businesses because of environment, and the pollution board in this country had been coming down. This 10-year rule, 15-year rule for cars, horrendous rule by the regulators in this world. Please imagine, nowhere in the world can you destroy a car's life in 10 to 15 years, but it was done at the cost of environment, which was the kind of degradation we were seeing. Imagine a capital cost investment, you're saying in 10 to 15 years will die out. Now, automobile industry was majorly hit. Now, given the environment, so there are a large number of other businesses which will actually prop up. People may want to now travel to places which they did not want to travel, just because of the fact that the environment was very bad, polluted. Now, since it is very clean, people would love to come to the cities immediately after the lockdown. And since it has been a long gap, they would like to explore it better. So now, it's a question of a game chain. We have seen hotels in the past who have sold the same room 3 to 4 times in a day. There have been cases like this multiple times around the world in different countries, even small hotels or large hotels. We will see those kind of situations going after the lockdown, maybe another month or two. So let us keep in balance that overall it will be a good scenario. You may not earn extra large profits, but I think you will reorient and make those profit margins, which Indians have been doing for decades and centuries.
Brilliant. I think you rightly pointed out that there's not going to be a change. People are going to come back to their processes which they were actually following. Be it whether this crisis is there at this point, it's going to shift over a period of time, and everybody's going to be back. Right. Saurabhji, what is your take on the education front? You feel that there's going to be a change or any shift in terms of how the education is going to really, take forward in the coming days?
Yeah, because
especially IT and all that.
Yeah, because actually we have always it said that scarcity brings innovation. So whenever we are having a difficulty, we always find a way and means of doing it. And most of the people who would have never thought that they would go for an online training, this online training has or online education has been a quick boost. So this also gives make us raise question to ourselves: do we need this kind of unnecessarily travel? And especially when the people are they are restricted to playing games on their mobiles. Now they can study on their mobiles and everything, so they can learn a lot of things from the mobile. So as Aman rightly said, that will be a problem for somebody and there will be gain for somebody. So the way we are doing education is definitely going to change. The people who have not experienced, many of our people, suppose there was no lockdown, then we would have this kind of seminar probably in a 5-star hotel, incurring a cost and a travel cost and a petrol cost for everybody, and doing a lot of things. And today we are in our homes and doing this seminar with as much efficiency as it was over there. Probably a better, more arranged, because we are utilizing our time in a more better way. We are not spending time on reaching early, doing everything. Only the personal touch is missing, but that's only in the mind. If you are connected, you are connected, basically. So the way the things are going to change for the education, it's definitely going to be a big boost for the online education. And we have understood that it is possible. Earlier, it was in our mind that it is not possible.
Yeah, you're right. Like these kind of challenges, it really brings on to an opportunity. People, even if they're not equated to it, they'll start learning to how to use this kind of technology. I think, there are certain sectors which people have been talking about, like those which have not been really structured in its terms. For example, the perishable agricultural products, we don't have a very structured logistics on that. Do you see that, that could be one of the bigger avenues that is going to come up?
Yes, sir. As I said, that Indians are a big innovators. So if you see, I'll give you a classic example: a ventilator which was costing 6 to 7 lakh rupees, and which has come out with Jyoti CNC for 1 lakh rupees. Now imagine, the question asked is that why they have not innovated this long time before. They could have still been able to supply. It's not that the ventilator are in need today. They were still in need that point of time. So these kind of innovations and these kind of things come with adversity. So now talking about the perishable things, yes, we have to find ways and means of making their life, to reach to the right hands in the minimum possible time by innovating. And people have done it. People who have been able to reach the forms, have been able to supply directly to the people. They have come out with the apps and everything. So they have also gone digital to sell their products. So the supply chain has strengthened. It has not deteriorated with this COVID impact.
Let me add to this. We have been doing a lot of research, especially with regard to agriculture and movement of goods. And I'm happy actually during this time, some of those things have been tested. We have been suggesting for over a decade now to have mobile mandis and mandis on phones. And fortunately, the government did create e-NAMs. But still, the problem was that the farmers actually are producers. They can produce very well, but they are not marketers. They can't sell. And that's where the middlemen used to come in and eat away the big chunk. And so we suggested, why don't the mandis send when companies like Amazon and others can actually deliver? And we are seeing today, my home is being serviced by vegetable vendors coming to my home outside because of the lockdown, and specifically because I'm in one of the hotspot areas in Noida, which clearly outlines the fact that they are coming to me and selling the products, and it's an efficient way of functioning as well. So why can't we have these mechanisms adopted where actually the agriculture produce could actually go to the mandis, because mandis have more benefit. So the better price could be given to the agriculturist. This big chunk of difference which used to take place in mandis and all will disappear. And I think I'm happy that this particular framework is coming. We are actually communicating today through RWAs and other groups that we want this product and they are able to service it. Why can't we have it on a regular basis, which is a more efficient system to do as against what we have been doing in the past? I think we need to embrace newer systems, new mechanisms. And I am happy that you raised about education. Since I am from an education institution, I thought I'll highlight also the fact that, students, children today, all of them are connected across the world through softwares like which we are communicating today. They're doing their day-to-day works. The concept of home learning has gone up. Would it continue? Partly, yes. I think this is something which was never tested. In times of difficulties, in times of curfews, students had to lack in terms of structures where there's special heat. In their countries where almost for 6 months there is full major snow and they can't do. I remember in Jammu and Kashmir, where the Vidhan Sabha moves from one state to the other. Why can't we structure these kind of things which can be done? I remember Chandrababu Naidu starting teleconferencing like the Narendra Modi ji is doing to meet up with ministers. He used to do it with councillors and all. Why can't we have? We have that technology. We could do it for the last 15, 20 years, but we did not implement. That saves a huge chunk of money, taxpayers' money in government and other frameworks, and brings in more efficient frameworks on the ground for each one of us. And ultimately, it's our money which is actually going to be spent, which we give away as taxes to the government, which can be saved and put into more productive use in terms of either building Ayushman or healthcare facilities or other benefits which could be given to like the MSMEs in terms of providing them some relief in terms of moratoriums and so on and so forth.
I think Amanji, you rightly pointed out, that this is an opportunity which we should all use, and I think this is also brought in as what Sarojji mentioned. Like we are trying to do this webinar, let's say by sitting in our own homes, and I think that's going to be a major shift also in terms of the transportation industry. Like for example, Ola and Uber, perhaps there's been a big drop there because taking a car in a single person, taking the whole car. Perhaps the public transport is going to go more efficient, and even work from home is going to become very important. So, Sarojji, do you think this is going to be a change in the transportation system as well?
Yes, sir. Actually, if you see to it that I was just going through one video, which I am sure many of people in the seminar would have gone through also. It is from the Mr. Mehta, the CEO of HUL. He said that he was traveling pre the COVID era twice in a month to London and attending the meeting. And today he's saying that he starts his work at 9 o'clock India time and finishes at London time. And he is doing every day the conference with the worldwide conference of the directors there. And he doesn't have to travel, and not even a single bit of his business is affected with that. So the question comes that why he was traveling, and what's the point of traveling and involving a cost and a time and energy in that. So when you travel, you do a meeting for 1 hour or 2 hours. But how much time you spend in going, coming, and in intermediary. So these things will change. These things will also put a pressure as well as advantage. Now, pressure would be that there will be less requirement of them, but at the same time, it would also help them to do the ways and means of doing things, which is like probably better services, or they have to come out with the ways and means of attracting people. Like Uber, they have started with the delivery, Uber Foods. So they see that the same resource they can use for the delivery. So still, like I have seen one company delivering the document. So instead of you having your peon, you can have somebody Denso, what it does in South. That Denso, what it does, it collects your document, and as if he's your personal peon, he goes and delivers for a small cost. So it's optimizing the resources. So our economies are moving towards the scale of optimizing the resources, and we still have an opportunity because still 40% of our population has to come up. So those people will bring the demand. So even if there is a lesser requirement of those people, but still the demand will come from those people. So we still in an advantageous position. So of course the time will change and it will be better for everybody.
Yeah, Sanjeevji, I'm just coming back to you on certain areas. Like if you look at the area of the assets, for example, the building construction and all that, you feel that work from home and all these things, that would bring a change in the physical assets which people own in a businesses?
It is difficult to comment on that at this point of time. Creating a infrastructure will be a manpower extensive job. So to that extent, I think the labor and all that would be required for these companies to be employed. However, the quest for going in and keep creating assets for yourself possibly might reduce given the present outcomes of this COVID-19 and seeing the future that is happening. Maybe the demand would reduce a little bit. However, but it will be flat, and maybe everybody will be able to take on with the reduced cost of these infrastructures in future.
Because I was reading one of those reports which says the real estate is going to go down by 20 to 25%. So maybe this would also affect workforce. Maybe some of them would be working from home. That could also add to this.
Work from home will be the way to go ahead in future, but there will be requirement of offices that people are renting out, which I don't think will reduce. Because to give you a very simple example, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and he said, "Let us meet up after the lockdown, and then we can discuss about the business." Now, we as an Indian old-time thinkers, they're still to get used to not meeting and closing a deal. So to that extent, a classic mindset change has to come into people, where the businesses are really going to be finalized, and people take on without physically meeting and clearing the deal on web, or maybe on Skype and things like that. So that mindset change is still to come in. But yes, it has shown us a way out where many people would want to do this. But still, there will be demand for have a office. May not be very big, but maybe small. But there will be offices. My appreciation is that.
One
Yeah,
point
you're
I'd
right.
like to add here.
Yes,
Please
Amit.
understand one thing, that real estate in India, specifically in India, does not sell because of a lot of investment demand and office and so on and so forth. That is certainly the commercial part of it. But large part of it actually sells because of social obligation, social commitment. You have children to marry, you have to have a son who has to have a house, you need to show to your new wedded wife or to anyone else a house which is there, you want to gift some of these things to your children. And that has been a major reason for both the automobile sector in this country as well as the real estate to boom up. And we have seen when the BPO segment actually fall off in way back in the 90s, when the US actually moved out in the mid 90s from the segment, giving out a huge chunk, and a lot of people moved out. There was again relationship building. So with this disruption which has happened recently, we will see a lot of young people who have been deterring away marriages getting back to marriages. And when that happens, we will see the natural demand, either the young couple or the young family which has been created wanting to let into a new house or rent it or buy, or even their family or parents wanting to secure their future by creating some of these real estate assets.
You rightly said, it's sometimes the need of society, which is bringing it out. So that's one of the areas. So I think we are coming at the flag end of our webinar. I would want lastly, Mr. Aman, to comment on what do you foresee and how do you foresee this digital payment? Because I'm of course from the field of digital, but then do you foresee that post-COVID we'll have more of these financial transactions happening through the digital way rather than physical way, and would there be a change into that?
No, I think we have already actually started in a way preparing for this digital world in a way. When Jan Dhan accounts were created, when Notebandi was created, people criticized it extensively. I have been on debate so many times, but I think that has boomed because large chunk of the people actually moved on the digital way, especially the grassroots level people who could never move on, even how much education you give them. The credit cards have been in business for almost about 8 decades now, but still people don't use credit cards to that level. But these digital frameworks have brought in, we are going to see a huge chunk. On an average, about $5 to $7 trillion worth of transactions take place every day. Is the transaction amount going down? It is not going down. Earlier, it was more a mix of government and private transactions. Now it's a mix of more government and less private. As I said, about $9 trillion is going to be lost in terms of production capacities, as the IMF said. But is it going to be completely lost? Not, because government is now creating, most governments are spending, whether it's a question of medicine, paramedical staff, others which are being pumped in. So naturally, there's going to be an excessive spending which will go on to do it. So financial transactions will keep going on with a little pace change from person to person, individual to individual, and organizations to organizations. We will see a large amount of reorientation in business, but I am very hopeful given the tracking of history, which I've been doing for the last 2 months now, of trying to study the history of almost 150 years of such scenarios which have been happening. And I am very robust on what has happened in the past, and that the fact that India in specific is much better prepared given the kind of reforms this government has been introducing for the last 4-5 years, which have been extensively criticized by a large number of pockets, but will actually reap benefits to people because of the facts which we have seen. We have seen lockdowns in cash, no cash was in hand, there were problems with liquidity. So we have come up, and that was almost for a period of 2-3 months. A lot of the businessmen, industrialists, real estate people who used to give out cash to laborers, they had all faced this problem. Did the labor cope up then? If they could cope up in 3 months, 3 months, way back in 2016, I think this is a short period where people will do. And I think people in India are mostly social. It's not the Cadbury report to do CSR and do ticking. Most people in this country, from any religion, want to contribute to the society. They want to take care of people. And that particular structure of being close to nature and going close to people and valuing the human capital, which is most important, is going to be seen as we speak in this time. And I'm happy that the government is giving due recognition. But I hope they do more in terms of what is expected to be done in terms of greasing and bringing that liquidity into the market.
I think, Manji, you rightly pointed out, I think if that comes in, it's going to be a big infusion to the whole overall market that we have. And I think that will help the stimulus the entire industry, whether it is MSME or the small business. So I think we have answered most of the queries. Simultaneously, I'm trying to watch across what people have been saying. There has been one query which, I would just take it up as a question. Someone has asked that, can we use the China model in terms of the manufacturing and all that? So I don't know, whoever would like to answer that. Saurabhji, perhaps you could take that.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking on this question, a very well question taken up. See, what I believe is, in India, we have all the resources to make similar infrastructure like China. Only thing we are lacking is the way of doing things. The work culture in China is much different than in India. So instead of importing the material or importing the technology from material, if we import the way of doing things and we can skill or train our people the Chinese way, if they start working the Chinese way, then India would be the future. Then there is no way that we can be behind China. India's labor cost is cheaper than China's labor cost, but it's the efficiency where we lack. So instead of bringing the people, instead of bringing the technology or the product made in China, we should bring the people to educate and train them to do the things Chinese way. And we can be again a superpower like China, I mean, in the production side, basically.
I think, Saurabhji, you rightly mentioned that, it is no different, like rather we have a much better manpower and lower cost. So I think, Sanjeev, you can perhaps give one remark here in terms of the skilling requirement, which can be enhanced to really match the international standards.
You see, this is the time when you have seen that most of the people are going to or are being motivated to go on to air and learn and skill themselves in terms of IT stuff, or maybe learning more skill developments in terms of their personal skilling is concerned. However, taking it on from what Mr. Saurabh was saying, that was exactly what my point was initially, that I had said that if we can motivate the manpower to start producing more in terms of bringing out their output from 100% to 150%, probably what was underlined was this model of China, where they're producing much more than what we are doing it now. And if we can improve it further, it will be much better.
I think you're right. Perhaps there are only areas, where we don't have an end-to-end, system where we have a production of, for example, even if we talk about pharmaceuticals today, pharmaceutical is a big sector, especially in Gujarat. There are a couple of APIs which are available only in China. So I think we are still dependent upon certain areas. Even when these masks were being made, there were people who were saying that we don't get the raw material since China has blocked all the raw material as of now, and we are unable to get the raw material for that. So I think, as you rightly said, that we have to have an end-to-end, complete infrastructure generated. As Saurabhji said, that we can develop much better infrastructure. And as Amanji said, like the scaling up has to be extremely large. So I think let's have a final remark from all of us before we close this session. Saurabh ji, I think you can start off, and then we come to Sanjeev ji and then Aman ji.
So friends, what I mean to say is I have two messages to you. First, we have to find a way to make up for the loss. And for make up of the loss, two things are there. First is a precaution, and second is the business best practices. And one thing which I can suggest to everybody is, see, airports work 24/7, ports work 24/7, railways work 24/7. If we see to it, we have 365 days in a year. Out of these 365 days, anyways, we were not working 95, 96 days. How? 52 Sundays, 24-hour holidays which we take, and another 15 festivals. So if you consider that our lockdown is only going to be extended maximum to 60 days, if it is 60 days, we still have 30 days of buffer there. So why we can always compromise on certain days, and we can bring back the productivity. So if one day of loss to our country is 35,000 crore, one day of extra working can even replenish what it is there. It's only about mindset. Why you need certain festivals to do that? If the entire country can take, if the people can work on holidays on Diwali at airport, then your people can also work. You can have one day holiday, man. Why you want 5 days, 7 days holiday, especially in Gujarat, 15 days holiday? Why you want that? Who's going to go this time? So make up for it. This is the time when you have to find ways of completing what is missing. Basically, I take it this way. Thank you.
Brilliant. I think Saurabh ji, you really rightly touched
I
upon
think,
each one
yeah,
of
I
us should.
think,
Sanjeev, now it's your turn because it relates
yeah,
to the end.
I think Saurabh has beautifully wind it off, and I also personally feel that with the bleak future depicted on TVs and all, I think this webinar has really shown up that you don't have to be, demoralized and stuff. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and we should be very, very positive. And whatever we are doing, we should do double that effort, and we should ensure that whatever we do, we give out 200% and come out of this as a unit as a whole. That is what I would like to take it off.
Thank you, Sanjeev ji. And finally, Aman bhai, I think you got to say the final words so that you could close this.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. No, I think we are in really good, welcoming, challenging times. That's how I must say. And it's important to restructure, reorient, rethink about what's going to go ahead. It's a beautiful tomorrow which we must look at. India has been tested as a region, as Hindustan or Bharat or whatever you may call as a conglomerate of kingdoms, has tested time for over 10,000 years. And we have survived, and we have been growing at a very fast speed, both in terms of population as well as in terms of reputation, which we have earned and our people have earned across the globe. I think there is no compromise to it. And the world, in fact, when I go for World Bank meetings, ADB meetings, OECD meetings, and I meet, they are perplexed with the fact, how does the MSME sector survive in your country with almost little or no support coming from the government? I think that is something which makes us the real survivors. And I think we will move through with flying colors and our flag held high. Vande Mataram. Thank you.
Amanji, you rightly said that if people across the globe, they wonder how MSME is working despite not major support from the government. So just as you mentioned in one of your session that if this infusion happens, just imagine what we could do. I think I thank personally each one of you, Saurabh ji, thank you so much, Sanjeev ji, and Amanji. I think it's been wonderful talking between all of us, and I believe that whoever has been attending this session would have gained substantially out of this webinar, and we will try and collate most of this information we have got, and I think eventually this would benefit the entire nation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Balaji, I would like to conclude here. From the SHM team, I like to thank all the speakers, including you, very well moderated, Dr. Bharat sir, Dr. Aman Agarwal, Colonel Sanjeev Datta, and Mr. Saurabh Khandelwal for such a learning opportunity for all of us, not only as an attendee but as an organizer. I've learned a lot of few things from you. Just for a viewer, in case you missed out something and you want to recollect, this video would be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. You can view it on anytime. We are posting all the webinars videos on our YouTube channel so that you can go and review it. Once again, thanks to all this panelists and the moderator for giving us time and opportunity. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Stay home. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you, Rohit. Thank you.
Thank you.